The following presentation was recorded live at CALLERLAB's 20th Annual Convention. This is tape number 2, Successful Choreography.
Tape, this is the first session of Improving the Dance Experience, Successful Choreography. My name is Tony Oxendine. I'll be the moderator. We have three highly we got three guys up here going to be some presenters for you. From Mesa, Arizona, and Carroll, Nebraska, Jerry Junck, who's been calling for 28 years. He's now caller in residence at several of the RV parks in Mesa, Arizona. From Glastonbury, Connecticut, Jack O'Leary, who began calling in 1961. He's a regional caller in the Northeast United States, and he's the owner and producer of Silver Sounds Records. Save this one for last. From Cool, California. I like that. Which is actually a suburb of Sacramento. Bronc Wise, and Bronc has been calling for 19 years, and Bronc works everything from mainstream through about senile. And we're going to go ahead and start with Jerry. Yeah, because you're the oldest. Nice hand for Mr. Jerry Junck.
Thank you and good morning. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for the introduction, Tony. Yes, I took your Sprite. Okay. The topic of our subject here is improving the dance experience, and our thoughts are that we improve our dance experience through successful choreography. And by successful choreography, I don't mean that your choreography necessarily has to be one-dimensional to be successful. There are many ways to spice up your choreography or to be creative, while at the same time ensuring dancer success. Successful choreography can be both interesting and doable. When being creative, we must keep two things in mind, and I think that the two things are your degree of difficulty, and you also have to keep in mind the second thing, your dancer ability for that evening or for that session. Now, first of all, I want to deal with the degree of difficulty. When either teaching a call at a class or using a particular call for a dance theme during an evening, I try to view the call from three different viewpoints. Easy, medium, and hard. That's the way I look at every call when I use it either as a dance theme or as a call to teach in a class. Easy, of course. What's the easiest way to teach the call, or what's the easiest way to set it up for dancer success? Medium, what's the next most difficulty in the use of that call, in setting it up or in using it? And of course, the last one is hard. What's the most difficult way to set up the call? Now, we can develop our creativity by being very aware of these 3 points. My concept of easy, medium, and hard basically has to do with the setup of these calls. How do I set the call up to achieve the result that I want? I try to set the calls up quickly so that I can normalize the dancers quickly and maximize their success. And I want you to be very aware of the fact that I said I can normalize them quickly to maximize success. Now, I'm going to take a look at 2 different calls for degree of difficulty, one in mainstream and one in plus. And in mainstream, I've simply chosen to take walk and dodge. And I got to talk to Tony a second. Did we say we can use a square? All right. Can I have a square just real quick? Just 4 couples. Yeah, don't everybody rush up here at one time. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to call. I'm just going to show some setups. And if I can have a square real quick, I'd appreciate it. No, they won't blow the hard one. Now, if I could ask you all to move over just a little bit this way so I can see it. I need one more couple. Could I have one more quick couple real quickly? I promise I will not embarrass you. This is only for demonstration. Here comes a couple. Thank you. These folks that are just walking up here right now are from Sweden, and I think that's neat. We'd like to welcome you to the convention. Thank you. There are quite a number of them sitting back there. Now, I chose two calls to use only from the standpoint I wanted to just show you what I consider easy, medium, and hard. I chose one call is walk and dodge. It's a mainstream call. What's the easiest way to set it up? I just want the heads to take a step forward, turn out and face your corner. Touch a quarter. Everybody uses a call this way. Walk and dodge. Partner trade. Right and left through. Flutter wheel. Star through. Gets us right back to our box 1-4. It's the easiest way to set the call up. It's the way we always use it. That's the way I would consider easy. We can vary that easy call and give us a little more variety. Touch a quarter again. Walk and dodge. How many of you have trouble, though, when you get here, everybody automatically does a partner trade. You don't have to do that. The boys are already moving forward. Boys fold. Star through till the boys touch. Boy trade. Couples circulate. Okay, bend the line. You're back to a normal setup. All I did differently on that was to fold the boys rather than a partner trade. But it's still easy. It's still something simple for them all to do. Now, let's do what I would consider, say, maybe a medium. Let's pass the ocean. And I'm not looking to resolve this at all. I'm not concerned with that. I just want to show some easy, medium, and hard ways to set up the same thing. Swing through. Spin the top. Okay, now a way we can set up walk and dodge that maybe we haven't thought about, and I would consider this medium, let's do a recycle. Notice which way the boys are going. They're moving forward. Boys walk, girl dodge. Now, they'll do that automatically without thinking about it because you set it up with your recycle. That's the way you walk them into it. Now, how do you normalize it? Boy run. You're right back. Okay, another example of the same thing, and maybe stretch it just a little further, and I would still consider this medium. Pass the ocean. Swing through. Spin the top. All right? We're set up about where we were before, but we want to stretch it. Let's recycle. Boy walk. Girl dodge. Okay, girls walk. Boys dodge. Now you stretch this just a little bit, and all of a sudden they are out of what we would consider a normal setup, and you want to normalize it quickly to maximize success. And there's an easy way to do that. Girls run. Boys run. We're back to something normal that they're comfortable with. We didn't get them too far out, and yet we allowed maximum success for any dancer or any dance group that you're talking about. Now, let's do the hardest way, what I consider the hardest way, to do a walk and dodge that may cause the most concern for dancers. We've got lines here. Let's touch a quarter. But let's work in your group of 4. We have 2 separate sets of boxes. In your group of 4, scoot back. I only preface my in your group of 4 with the scoot back to let the people recognize they are in fact working in a group of 4. In your group of 4, split circulate. In your group of 4, walk and dodge. By setting it up and allowing them to see their little groups of 4 first, they'll do that walk and dodge without thinking about it. Okay, do a partner trade. And what have we done? We're right back to normal. That's the way I would take a look at a mainstream call and try to use it so you see all the ways you can use it. And certainly I didn't have the girls do a lot of walking and the boys do a lot of dodging. but I try to set it up to see different points that you can start from. Now I'll take a plus call, and we all do crossfire. Let's just step to a wave, swing through, boy run. Our standard crossfire says this: the centers trade and extend as the ends cross fold. So let's do a crossfire. That's the most normal way that you see it. There are other ways to do this call, and let's all eight circulate. Boy run. Star through. Okay. Now, star through again. Pass through. Alaman left, I think that's right. Okay. They're back home. Now, the medium way to do a crossfire, to my way of looking at it, would be to do it from lines facing out. Here is where I think your setup is important. Sides do a right and left through. Okay, heads pass through, separate around one. You've got a line of four. Everybody pass through. Here is where it can get real shaky. And I mean real shaky. But if you take the time to set it up properly, it doesn't. What do the ends do? They cross-fold, don't they? Ends cross-fold. What's happened? The sides are home. They're comfortable. They have their partner back. They're home. Centers, what do you do in a crossfire? You partner trade in this case and extend to a wave. They'll be comfortable with that. Also, you can get out of this real simple. Everybody extend. You're back to a box. A normal box, got your corner. Swing through. Boy run. Ferris wheel. Center star through, and you're home. It's not the difficulty of the call. It's not the difficulty of the call. It's how you set it up. How do they succeed? You didn't let them get far enough away for breakdown, and that's the way I try to do it. The most difficult way for me to use crossfire, I would think, is this: sides roll away, heads take a step forward, turn out and face your corner, do-sa-do to a wave. All right, now we can stretch this a little bit, and we're going to stretch mainstream as well as the plus call. Let's do a recycle and veer left. Now that's stretching just a little bit, but we have centers and we have ends, don't we? Now if we do crossfire from here, the ends cross-fold, the centers trade and extend. But watch what happens the way it's set up, how we get normal real quick. Let's crossfire. Ends cross-fold, centers trade, extend. Every boy has got a girl. Every boys run around a girl. You're back to a normal thing like here. Square through three and you're out. One. Alaman left. Now, that's the way I would take two calls, one mainstream, one plus, and work easy, medium, and hard for dancer success. And I really think you have to take a look at your setup. After they've danced this a little bit and become familiar with it, then the sky's the limit, as these guys from Sweden will tell you. But you have to start somewhere, and I think you start very carefully with your setups. And if you would give these guys a nice hand, because I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I think that's where you start. I think you start with being careful of your setup originally. After they've danced that a few times and they're aware of those various positions and that they can do that, then I don't think you have to worry as much about your setup. But before that, think about how you're going to present the call to maximize dancer success. The second part of creativity depends on dancer ability. Every group of dancers is different. Being able to judge your floor quickly and gain their confidence is imperative. Once you determine their ability as a group of dancers, you can judge how far you can go with that degree of difficulty for that evening or for that session. Also, you have to know your own ability to set up these calls. When you're going in to call a dance or to call a workshop or to teach a call, know what you're going to do. Know that call. Know that if I set it up this way, this is what I get. And you want to be able to set it up so that you have success as well. If you're confident, you create confidence in your dancers. And there's no amount that you can say for that. Breakdowns lead to frustration. Frustration leads to an exodus from the square dance activity. Caller judgment is so important. It's your responsibility to use your judgment how you present these calls. Why do people turn around dancing, Western dancing, or why do they just simply quit square dancing? Because we as callers don't provide them with smooth flowing choreography, and we don't think about how do we present these calls as well as we should. Case in point, how many of us use follow your neighbor and spread and follow it with swing through? Flip the diamond, follow it with swing through. It's not really very good flow for the ladies. We need to think about that. If you trade those ladies, it makes that such a much nicer flow and feel, and you're going to have better success. There's just no way around that, simply because you break that flow up and give them a better chance for success. Jack Lazary said one time, he said, "I'm not concerned about the dancers who quit square dancing." He said, "I'm concerned about the ones we're driving out." And I think we really need to think about that, how we present calls, maximize dancers' success. And we do that by forethought, by judgment, by giving some thought to our presentation, to how we present the call, how we set up the call. And there's no limit to what you can do with it, but set it up properly and think about how you're going to present that call to maximize dancer success. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I don't know if you guys were, it made me think when he was doing that a second. I've always heard the expression, it's not what you call, it's how you call it to make dancer success. Did you notice that the easy calls that he was doing when he did the walk and dodge or the crossfire, it started when I thought of as a normal position, and it ended up in a normal position. That's the best way for dancer success. If you're going to get creative with this choreography that he was doing, notice how quickly that if he started off in a weird formation, something abnormal, that he normalized that formation as quickly as possible. It's a lot easier if you do a call if it starts off weird and winds up normal. Recycle comes to mind. To me, it's easier to teach folks how to do a left-handed recycle with the boys in the middle than it is to do a sashayed recycle, because a left-handed recycle with the boys in the middle puts you back into normal couples at the end. Just something to think about. Our next presenter, nice hand for Jerry. Did we clap for Jerry? Let's clap for him again anyway. Our next presenter from somewhere in Connecticut, Jack O'Leary. I'll pass your hand out.
Thanks, Tony. Tony's distributing a handout for you all, and I'll go over a few of the things on it, but you're free to read through at your leisure. When I started calling in 1961 in New England, we didn't have wheel and deal. We didn't have swing through. In fact, we only had a handful of basics. Yet, we had large crowds of dancers. There were certain clubs in a medium-sized metropolitan area outside of Boston that had closed clubs, and they were closed because they could only accommodate 25 to 30 squares. Memberships in those clubs grew rapidly because the only way you could assure yourself a place in the dance floor is to belong to the club. If you weren't a member and you didn't get there in time, you were turned away at the door. That's hard for us to imagine today as we look at the activity. But I think we had a lot of fun in those days. We didn't worry about levels or lists. We just gave the dancers a good time. Some of the things that I'm going to share with you this morning are things that have worked for me. You might call them gimmicks, but they're gimmicks that will get your dancers chuckling, give them a feeling of satisfaction. And I'm sure if we polled everyone in this room, everyone has a few of their own. These are just ones that have worked well for me. I'm going to also ask if we could have a square of dancers. It doesn't have to be the same folks that were just up, but it could be. But the quicker we get those folks up on the floor here, the sooner we can get on with this. So I would ask for another square of dancers, please, to come right up here. Don't be bashful. Right. I can pick them, but two couples. They're coming. We have them. Great, thank you. I'll run through a couple of examples with you that I've used successfully with a wide range of dancer abilities. These work whether you're calling for a mainstream group or a plus group, and I've even used them in the advanced program with a few changes here and there. Let's start out with everyone taking your partner in a promenade position and promenade. Listen real close now. Head couples only. Put your partner in front, single file, and keep going like that, no matter what. Sides, wheel into the middle, do a do-si-do. The others keep going, single file. In the middle, star through. In the middle, square through 3/4. Look for your corner, Alaman left. Promenade partner. Say whoa. Okay. That was just a timing thing, and what I usually do is set it up by saying, okay folks, going to test out your timing now, and that gets them to listen. And we do this little thing with the promenade. There are other things that you could do in the middle, where the heads do a do-si-do and star through and square through 3/4. And I'll leave it up to your own creativity to come up with other things, as long as it times out right. That outside promenading single file couple is going to run right into you. Heads, square through. Split the outside. Round one, make a line. Everyone, box the gnat. Look her in the eye, do a right and left through. Slide through, swing through. And the boys run. Now the boys trade down your own line. Boys, turn a quarter right turn in place. You're looking at the lady's ear. Tendency here is if you say, I used to say boys roll in place. And what I found was a majority of the dancers who hadn't been taught well were folding in front of that girl. I didn't want that to happen. So then I just said, turn quarter right turn in place, look at her ear. And sometimes you can get a little reaction from that. Ladies in the center, cast 3/4, please. Check your ocean wave down the middle. Very center girls in that wave, trade. Girls swing through. Turn through. Star through with the boys. 2 boys trade. Now wheel and deal. Pass through. Trade by. Guess who? Alaman. Promenade your partner. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to change it a little bit at the end. Side square through. Do a centers in. Centers run. Lines forward and back. Box the gnat. Look her in the good eye. Do a right and left through. Slide through. Swing through. And the boys run. Boys trade. And when you get there, roll in place. You're looking at her ear. Ladies, cast by the right 3/4. Check your ocean wave. Very center girls trade. All the girls swing through. Girls turn through. Star through the boys. 2 boys trade. Wheel and deal. Pull them on around. Pass through. Trade by. Hey, or right and left through with the outside too. Everybody roll a half sachet. Zip to the middle and back. Pass through. Everybody zoom. Left Alaman right there, boy. All right, promenade your partner. They think when you pass through and trade by, oh, here's that corner, I'm going to get her. You don't want to wait too long, though, because if you wait too long, they're going to be halfway through the Alaman left, and you've lost it. But if you can put a little enthusiasm in your voice as you get to that point, so they're thinking about it, but then you change it. If you change it at the proper time, you're okay. And then it's the gimmick of everybody zoom, rolls them around in front of their corner right away, and the Alaman. Let's do one more that in some areas of the country may be controversial. And again, it's going to be your judgment here. And that is where you have 2 boys dancing together, 2 girls dancing together. Again, in certain places you can use it. Other places you may want to pass on it. Let's have the head 2 couples. Star through, please. Pass through, circle 4 to a line. Pass through, wheel and deal. All face your partner and back away. You have 2 he, she lines. Pass through. Wheel and deal like that with the boys in the middle. Boys, step to a wave. Swing through. Spin the top, half right, 3/4, ends move up. Swing through again. Spin the top, half right, 3/4, ends move up. Now boys, be careful. Do a right and left through. Who turns who? Very nice. Now the boys square through 3/4 while the ladies roll away with a half sachet. Say, hey, Alaman left, your corner. All right, square your sets. And they usually chuckle a little bit about that. As they're promenading home, I say, ladies, what are you laughing about? You're next. And we do the same routine, but we do it a little differently. And the way to get the ladies in the center and have them do the action is thusly. Side couples, go forward, face your corner. And you can square through. To get there, you can square through, but in the interest of time, we'll just do it this way. Do a right and left through. Dive through. Star through. Heads, square through, 4. Circle up 4 with the outside 2. Break out to a line. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Double pass through. All face your partner, back away. 2 he, she lines. What changed it was the double pass through. Puts the ladies in the active, the right-hand couple spot. Pass through, wheel and deal like that. Ladies in the middle. And we won't have to go through the whole thing, but the ladies would do the swing through and the spin the top and the square through, and then the boys would roll a half sachet. That corner's waiting for you. How about a nice hand for the dancers here? Thank you very much. So those are just 2 or 3 little gimmicks that work, makes your program a little more interesting. And again, as I say, you may have some that you like. These are just some more. Here's some other things to maybe think about. From a standard double pass-through position, you might want to call Zoom, which is fine. Try ladies Zoom and see what happens. It's kind of interesting. Or just the boys Zoom. They have to think about that for a minute, but they can usually get through it. From a half sachet line of 4, try ladies in and the men's sachet. And they'll think hard about that one. And, if you just join the ends of those 2 lines, you have a circle. But because they're in a line and they're half sashayed, it takes them a minute to process what ladies in and men's sachet really does. And you can just say, change places with them, fellas. On singing calls, right-hand progressions are a nice change. You always go to your corner for the progressions. Try a figure that gives you a right-hand lady progression. There's several of those around. Alaman left, walk by 1, swing the next, promenade. Occasionally vary the figures in your singing calls. There was a philosophy that some hold to that says, well, the singing call is the time in the program where the dancers can relax. I don't really know what that means, but does that mean they don't have to think about anything? You can probably just put your microphone down. They'll just do the call. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think we can vary the figures slightly in the singing call and make it more interesting for the dancer. Finally, varying the types of singing calls in the dance. You don't want to do at least I don't want to do an entire evening of hard driving music, nor do I want to do an evening of ballads. And we won't go into programming, but I think you know where I'm going with that. There's a lot of music out there, and the key is to vary that program so that your dancers are maximizing their enjoyment. Here's some key words to remember as you think about providing the most interesting dance possible to your audience. Creativity. judgment, enthusiasm, variety, timing, delivery, entertainment, fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jack. And sitting listening at some of Jack's thing, it just crossed my mind for a couple of things. If we're going to use these calls from different setups, if we're going to set up the same-sex swing through, the same-sex spin the top, or whatever different way you decide to vary your choreography, take the time initially, do your homework before you call it, find a resolution for it. Don't just have the boys do stuff in the middle and then call from there. If you're going to take the time to set up something like that, have a get-out for it. If you can do it so the boys can square through 3 to an Alaman left. Now, that's kind of different. You know, be aware that if you call boys square through 3 to an Alaman left, somebody's got to turn a little farther or a little less than normal in order to come back out normal. The dancers tend to adjust for that. The way you do these calls like this, you're not going to be able to leave here today, go home 2 days from now, and try to do some of this stuff unless you take the time to study the calls and know the definitions of the calls. If you know the definitions and the rules of the calls, then you make the calls work for you. And that's what establishes good choreography. There's no difference in a Lee Kottman and one of you guys, with the exception that people like Lee Kottman, the choreographers, the guys that have made an art of this thing, have taken the time to do their homework, and they know exactly how to do the calls. You can take the most simple calls and really be creative with them, and I think maybe Bronc will have something to say along that line. So with that in mind, from Cool, California, Mr. Bronc Wise.
Oh. No, not yet. Check. Is this thing on? Oh, okay. Hi. Hi. I'm Bronc, and I am from Cool, California. That's in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. We have a beautiful place to live there. I've enjoyed what the other fellows have had to say so far, but now we've seen some of the examples of things they've had. They say, well, how do I develop this for myself? Friends, let me tell you something. As a 19-year veteran in the School of Hard Knocks, I'll tell you right now, the only way that you're going to get better choreography is by sitting down with your checkers and pushing them and writing material. There is no other way to develop. If you sight call 100% of the time, you're going to cheat yourself and you're going to cheat your dancers. You have got to write material. It's just that simple. If your dancers are pressuring you, saying, why don't you call some new stuff? I bet you there's lots of people in this room right now, their dancers are saying, oh, we've heard the same thing 10 times. Why don't you get some new stuff? The only way you're going to get some new stuff, you can find a note service that'll give you some guidance, but it is virtually impossible to call someone else's material. You have to develop your own. You have to put your own personality into the material. There's no simple way to do that. If you find it difficult to find time to write material, if you can find 30 minutes a day to write 3 sequences a day, that's 21 sequences a week. That's a lot of material. When I say write a sequence, I'm talking about modules. I still believe in modular calling. I still think it's the best way to go. I think when you write, you should try to write your cards 12 to 15 calls long. If you're writing harder material for people who aren't used to doing it, the longer you make the sequence, the more difficult it becomes for those people. You've got to give them a short period of time to do this. And if it's too tough for them, well, then you're just a few calls away from bailing out. And then you can go back and do it slowly or help them any way you can. One of the things I found out with some of the newer fellows that I've worked with in our area is when they go to write something creative, they try to write the hardest thing they can possibly think of. That's not going to cut it. It's not time to get hard. It's time to get clever. In case you haven't noticed, our numbers are shrinking out there. It's got me worried, and it should have you worried too. We want to see our activity succeed. We want to see our activity live on. And the only way it's going to live on is if we allow the dancers to succeed. And sometimes the toughest thing in this business is self-evaluation. I would suggest this to you. The next time you call a dance, tape yourself and listen to it with a critical ear. Don't worry about your singing calls. Anybody can do a singing call. That's not the story. What are you doing on your patter calls? Are you doing your homework? Can you self-evaluate and say, what can I do better with this dance? Not what can I do better. What can I do to make the dancers enjoy it a little bit better? Another thing that comes into play is we get a lot of gimmick figures, okay? Gimmick figures play well once a night. But if you do a whole dance full of gimmicks, it's really unfair to the dancers because after a while they're going to have a hard time seeing them. They're going to become saturated. Okay, I'd like to show you a few things that I've come up with along the years. I'd like to get a square together if we could. Well, don't be afraid. I won't beat you up too bad. Come on down. Oh, that's all right. Well, that's all right. I'm getting an early whack at them. In a couple of months, I'll see them up close. Still need one more. Got them on the way? Okay. In my opinion, all square dance calls boil down to being one of three things. They are some form of a hinge, meaning like arm turns, hinging, trading, casting, three-quarters. Some form of a circulate, and everything else is running around in a circle. That's how I address writing choreography. There's lots of families, lots of subsets, but square dance calls boil down to one of three things. Prove me wrong. Okay? Let me show you some easy things that you can do that aren't hard, that just lend themselves to good dancing. Let's have heads pair off, please. Okay, now we all do this. Swing through. Go ahead. Boy run around a girl. Wheel and deal. What a rush. Okay. Now then, if that's the case, we can do all kinds of neat little things within each two-couple side, little module calls. Watch this. Nothing hard here. Touch a quarter. Scoot back. Boys fold. Girls pass through. Touch a quarter. Boys trade. Boy run around a girl. Bend the line. Slide through. What's your net result? The same. And that was better than swing through, boys run, wheel and deal. And it wasn't hard. Every time that you call a boys run, do you call a wheel and deal afterwards? Do you call bend the line afterwards? Do you call Ferris wheel afterwards? Think about that. I see so many times when I go call places, after I call boys run, half the floor's done bend the line before I can do it. Okay? This is where self-evaluation comes in. Let's all veer to the left. Okay? Do a Ferris wheel. Center spread, let the outsides crowd in. I didn't look at who your corner was. I'm not real concerned right at the moment. All right? I'm not worried about it. Okay, now then. Something else that I do is I call it bits and pieces choreography. That's where we take a piece of one call and a piece of another call and we combine them for some nice dancing. I'm going to get into the plus here a little bit more with this. Now, watch this. Everybody pass through. Do a U-turn back. Touch a quarter. Only the men track two. Girls do one circulate, take rights, ladies trade, pick up a guy. And that's a nice little sequence and people can do it. Okay? Bend the line. Pass through, wheel and deal, spread, let the outsides in. Good. Pass through, U-turn back. All right, now let's talk. I set this up by having you pass through and a U-turn back and then touch a quarter to put the men in the lead for the track two, obviously. You'll say, why didn't you call partner trade? For most mainstream and plus dancers, partner trade with same sexes together is hard. Why complicate the issue? Turning around in place is easy. Okay? Now, touch a quarter. Let's go on. Boys only, track two. Girls, double pass through. The girl in front, do a U-turn back. Girls, single circle to a wave. Pick up a boy. Couples circulate. Bend the line. Harder. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Spread. Pass through. U-turn back. You've noticed that each time I have not changed the setup. So people can do that. They can memorize that little setup. Touch a quarter. Just the boys. Track two. Boys, when you're done, face in. Girls do one circulate. Take hands. Girls hinge. Extend. Girls trade. Guess what? All right. Now then, pass through. Wheel and deal. Those in the middle square through three. Slide through. Do a right and a left through. Roll away. Now then, for variety, I'm just going to call a Pass the Ocean from here. You know yourselves that people have trouble doing Pass the Ocean from a half-sashayed line. So that should be the hardest focus of this little part I'm going to call right here. Pass the Ocean. Boys on the hook. Notice how I help them. Boys run around the girl. Well, I go harder. Bend the line. Do a right and left through. Roll away with a half sachet. Pass the Ocean. Boys on the hook. Spin the top. There's a standard spin the top with the girls casting 3 and the boys moving up. Recycle. Good. And these are just some nice little things that you see that there's really nothing that difficult. The idea is that if you're going to call something hard, call one small hard thing and then get out of it easily. Okay? You can have all the great get-outs in the world. That's fine, but there's got to be more than square dancing to that. And if you see the same people week in and week out, if you have a bunch of get-outs, pretty soon people are going to start seeing through them. You got to do your homework. It's just that simple. Hey, give the square a nice hand. I think terrific. Right. Thank you very much. And I like to say, and I like to reiterate, if you want to be better with your choreography, there's only one person that can cure it, and that is you. You've got to sit down. You've got to push the checkers. And when your dancers say, I'm bored, if the dancers say it was too hard, the dancers pay your salary. Let them dictate what you do. Thank you.
Very nice, Bronc. Once again, I don't know if you guys are noticing the trend. Everybody is saying the same thing differently. Everybody's saying, well, let's take a call that we're not familiar with, or let's take a call that we're familiar with. If it's a formation that we're familiar with, let's make it unfamiliar, and then get familiar with it again. If it's a call that we're not acquainted with a lot, then let's look at it from a normal setup. Once again, Bronc was showing you when he was doing the track 2 kind of things. It started off weird, but the trick is that he resolved it quickly. He made it normal. He made a normal 2-face line out of it, or a normal ocean wave. That's the key to it. One of the benefits that Bronc has, and I think it would do us all some good, is that Bronc was utilizing a lot of advanced concepts at a plus level or a mainstream level. If we as callers could dance the level above, that which we call normally, it would give you so many more ideas. I hear so many people down on advanced or down on challenge, and that's really not the attitude. If we would learn these lists and learn the calls, you could see that so many of the calls are applicable at the lower levels. We can use them. You don't have to call an advanced call. One of the calls Bronc did a while ago was almost to transfer the column. It was almost. It may have been you traded the girls at the end, I think. Okay. But if you knew that, if you danced advanced, then you knew that was an advanced call called transfer the column. If you had never seen advanced before, you thought, God, isn't Bronc smart? All he did was directionally do a call. He utilized his knowledge of the upper list. We can do the same thing with the lower levels. And it's even more important to have a working knowledge of the lower levels. You need to know how to do the spin the tops, the scoot backs, the calls that don't get worked a lot. Those make a good caller out of you a lot quicker. What's the easy way to do it? A method I use is take a mainstream list, put it in front of me when I'm calling, and I pick a call out that I want to look at a lot. Once again, like Bronc said, you've got to do your homework beforehand. And I think maybe you guys perhaps misunderstood Bronc a while ago. I don't think Bronc intends for you to write out 21 sequences and come at your dance and put a piece of paper in front of you and read it. Now, at some levels, that's good. I think the idea behind it is that you get the idea of having, I have this material in front of me, and I see on this material it says, oh, let's do a spin the top with the girls initiating the action. That's the whole idea behind it. Why are you giving me this? Oh, okay. Jerry had a good idea. He's got a plus list here that's laminated. When he wants to feature a call, he just takes a highlighter pen and highlights it. Let's see if I had anything else. In the opening session this morning, it would do all of us some good as callers if we could go to across the seas. If we could go to Europe, either England, Germany, especially Sweden, and watch the choreography that is at the bottom end, at the basic list and the main. Never thought of those. This stuff isn't easy. You're not going to be able to go out tomorrow and put this material together like Bronc could put it together, or one of these other gentlemen could put it together. But you've got to start somewhere. And with starting somewhere in mind, do we have questions? We're supposed to have questions because this is on tape, and if we don't have questions, it's going to really sound bad at the end of the tape.
Is that on? Is this on? I have not talked to Bronc since 1987. We spent a week together one night. But
I spent a week with Bronc one night.
Yeah, I did. No, I don't think so. We have not talked since 1987, I think. So it's been a long time ago. I did not realize that our philosophies are so much the same. What Bronc was saying to you is exactly the way I feel. You have to work at your choreography. It does not just happen. Just because you can resolve a square does not mean you can call a square dance. You have to understand the formations, how to get in and out of the formations, and to do that you have to do your homework. You really have to take a look at how to do it. And it doesn't mean being hard. That's why I said you need to look at easy, medium, and hard. It means being clever. How can you set these up to maximize success and yet be doable, yet be danceable? And Bronc really brought that out. You need to take a look at how to do that. It was very good.
If we don't get any questions now, we're going to get another square up for something, so you better ask a question. I can't believe with all of that stuff these guys put out there, because I didn't understand a lot of it. You're going to have to go to the mic if you're going to talk. I knew we'd get somebody. Yeah, we need it for the tape. And your name is?
Jimmy Robinson out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And you kind of hinted at something just a minute ago, Tony, and I was wondering if any or all of you up front would like to address why is the choreography better in Europe? Why can they do with dancers what we can't do here?
Oh, you can have a stab at it. Have the mic.
Thank you. My first time to go to Sweden is this year. I haven't seen before. But I have an idea that in calling in other foreign countries, I believe that the United States is not a club-oriented society. I think other societies are more club-oriented and their attendance tends to be more faithful than what sometimes our folks are in the United States. We have people that they drop out of dancing for 6 months, we welcome them right back in. In other places, they drop out for a while and they make them start over. I think that has a lot to do with it. I've witnessed that in 2 or 3 foreign countries I've been to. I hear some of the stuff those guys are doing. It's terrific. I like it. It's really, really good. Ed, were you heading for the microphone?
Yeah, Ed Foote. I just had a couple thoughts on one thing that Jerry said and one thing that Jack said. Jerry, you said you didn't like the follow your neighbor and spread where the men go in for the follow your neighbor and spread, followed by a swing through, and I assume that's because you feel the girls moving sideways and then coming back.
I think it's overflow for the ladies.
Because she's sliding sideways and then coming right back to the same...
Well, it's almost like a full circle.
Oh, because of the circle.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And Jack, I guess I was a little concerned on the gimmick get out of everybody's Zoom. Here it was walked slowly, and even then people kind of crashed into each other. And I'm very concerned about calling a Zoom from a trade by with the music on and everybody going full tilt. I consider that a dangerous call where people could get hurt and would never consider calling a Zoom, even as a gimmick, from a trade by.
Again, it's a judgment call, I believe. From my own experience, the worst thing that has happened is they walk by each other and then they realize it. So flow-wise, it's questionable. Never really had one bang into each other.
Yeah, you're going to have to if we go to the mic, or I'll repeat the question if you want me to. If you want to. You're going to have to go to the mic now because we're going to have a big dead spot on the mic. We happen to have 4 Swedish callers here. and I don't want to interrupt you, and it's really not part of this meeting here, but perhaps it might behoove us to listen to one of these guys after you speak, Bill, because Ed has published several letters that said he thinks the Swedish dancers are the best dancers in the world. I have to reiterate that. I've been calling in Sweden for 10 years. How many years? 10 years or so? I've never seen anybody who can dance like those people. There is surely nobody in the United States at any given point that dances as well as these guys do. Maybe we can have one of the guys talk about it now with that in mind.
Yeah, Bill Peterson from Livonia, Michigan. I had the opportunity to call in Sweden last year, and I'm going next month. And fortunately, I had someone tell me a little bit about Swedish dancers prior to going there. I'll make 4 observations. Number 1, dancers are much younger. You're looking at them. I called a dance in Helsingborg, and out of 11 squares, I think you could count on one set that was over 45 years old. They had 4 callers. In the 4 callers, 3 of them were 26, and 1 was an old guy of 32. An old guy. That's number 1. Secondly, you're not going to believe the situation until you see it. When you're calling, they never sit down between tips, and they'll bear it out here. The dancers just stand there, and as you fumble around for your records and trying to think what you're going to do, they stand there. Thirdly, they don't dance with the same partner. They go to a dance with a partner, in a lot of cases, and the married fellow will get another partner for the second tip. So if you think you're going to do sight calling, think again. You say that tall guy with the nice-looking girl, well, the tall guy's got
they're
another
all
nice-looking
nice-looking girls.
I'm not promoting this by any way. And lastly, I called a dance there in May of basics, 1 to 49. Half of a dance was in basic. You alternate basic, mainstream, basic, plus basic, advanced. So you do half a dance using basics 1 through 49 of people who started in September and are still taking basic in May. I'll bet you don't have 10% of the clubs in the United States that are still taking basics in May. But again, look at the crowd back there. That's what you see. They're sharp, young people. That'll cost you guys a quarter apiece, incidentally. Anyway, I just wanted to make some comments. Tony and I were talking about that. Tony brought it up at the main meeting, and once you get over there, be prepared to call well.
Be aware. Let me explain. I'm not picking on these guys in Sweden or anything. But now these guys study. If you can follow this in your head, I don't want to get any people out. One of the first times I ever went to Sweden, I'd been traveling for a long time in the United States and recording records, and I just thought I was really good. And I went over, and the first time I went over, I found out quickly how much I didn't know. We were at some session, and I was splitting a tip with one of the callers. I think it may have been Al Stevens at that time. At a mainstream level, he did this sequence, cold turkey to 100 squares, if you can follow this in your head. He said head square through 4, and everybody do an 8-chain 4, but the heads only go 3.5 to a left turn through. 100 squares did it. That's when I knew I was out of my league. I had no business being, but that's the type material. Well, now, here again, that is creative choreography. Now, I don't know that I'd want to call that as a normal rule of thumb. However, I could set that sequence up if I wanted to. I could talk a floor through that. I could help them a little bit and eventually get them through that sequence. But I think that's the whole idea. And that's what I think has gotten square dancing as at a higher level in Sweden as it is because the callers take the time out to do the homework. That's our problem. We don't do homework. You can't come out. This morning, we all clapped when we said something about mainstream. And half the floor was clapping, and half of you guys called plus. I know that. And it's nice, and you can... The thing is that it's very, very difficult to wing a mainstream program. You have got to make preparations. You have got to study. You have got to write out material. You've got to research material through callers' note services. Your choreography has got to be creative. At the point of being creative, it's also got to be danceable. And it's also got to be fun. You don't want to work the dancers an entire evening. So, and there's where you as a caller is going to have to find the fine line where it ceases to become fun and becomes work. You want to find that point. That's going to be different for everybody. Do we have any more questions? Would one of you guys like to say something? Ingvar? This is Ingvar Peterson from somewhere near Stockholm.
Well, you know where it is.
I've been there.
Örebro, yes. Anyway, first of all, you know, all this stuff that Tony says about Sweden, everything is not right, though. You know, I've seen dancers as good and better here in the States, a lot of them. But, you know, one of the things that I think is the major thing why we maybe have a little bit stronger level overall is maybe because we spend more time teaching them. Like, we spend a whole year teaching them just basic 49, you know, and another year for mainstream, and then a third year on plus. So, and even a fourth year on plus DVD, you know, dance by definition stuff. And then they might go on to advance, you know, so. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
You know, did you hear that they teach basic for a year and then mainstream for a year? So by the time anybody learns plus, so consequently, if you're going to call on a week-to-week basis to people that dance this much and this long, your choreography had better be creative. We're really getting off the subject here, and I guess it's okay if that's what we're going to talk about. Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Baker from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I'm 50% Swede. My grandparents came from Sweden. But I'd like to defend our country a little bit. I've been, my wife and I have been dancing for 36 years, and we've been through, I've been calling for 35 years. But in defense of this country, we made all the mistakes. Sweden and Europe was able to benefit from our mistakes. When we started the club back in 58 or something like that, it came out of a class. I started to learn to call. I couldn't find anything on definitions back in 58. Definition, I had to search the whole country. Finally found a magazine called Sets in Order that had some of that stuff. And Ricky Holden, finally found a magazine by Ricky Holden. So what I'm saying is, we made all the mistakes and getting square dancing going long before we started. But the other countries, Australia and Sweden, Europe, Germany, and so on like that, they were able to benefit, I think, and seeing where we made our mistakes and not get into that. I remember starting classes, and the club was waiting on that class, and we were going 12 lessons, making pair dancers out of them. But the club was anxious to have them, even though we had a big club. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Don Coy. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and the question is about two of the demos that we did there. And one was where the same sex was doing a right and left through. I want to know if that's a proper thing to do. I've called that a few times and been called down by some callers that have been to my dances. And the other question is about the crossfire for lines facing out. I read the Ed Foote article in the recent American Square Dance magazine about which way should be done. One was you finish in a quarter tag, the other a three-quarter tag. I would like some clarification.
Regarding the right and left through from the ocean wave, again, it's something that I classify as a gimmick. I have not had a significant problem in doing it, and I've never had anyone say that, you know, it was illegal or anything like that. Again, a lot of these things, you really have to, I think, you have to know your dancers, and you have to time these things out properly. If you have any question about a certain thing, don't do it. That would be my best advice.
Yeah, I think normal rules don't apply to gimmick material. I think if you can, and we know that boys aren't supposed to courtesy turn boys. However, the dancers will let you get by with it, you know, once or twice. An entire evening of it, perhaps not. Ed, you want to address the crossfire issue? It was your article. And since this man used your name in vain.
In the article, I pointed out that it's a common misconception that the word extend is part of the definition of crossfire. If you read the CALLERLAB definition of crossfire, the word extend does not exist. It is nowhere in the definition. I think it comes from all of us may have had, especially in the past, the idea that we would use the word extend in terms of a generic sense, extend meaning just step forward somewhere. And now CALLERLAB has tried to say that extend is only when it relates to a tag setup, a tag situation, and therefore that's why the definition doesn't have the word extend in it. Well, if the word extend is not in the definition and just says step forward, then my article raised the question of how can you justify stepping to an ocean wave in the center when you do the call from lines facing out. That it isn't, the definition is not an extend, it's merely the center's trade and step forward. And if you look at the footprint action of the centers when they step forward from two-face lines, from parallel two-face lines when the centers step forward, they do not step forward as far as is required for them to step forward when the call is done from lines facing out in order to make an ocean wave in the middle. On the other hand, CALLERLAB says in a separate sentence on the definition of crossfire that when it's called from lines facing out, it will give you a quarter tag formation in the middle. In my opinion, you can't have it both ways. You can't say there's no definition of the word extend, and yet we arbitrarily say you can do it from this other situation. On the other hand, those who would disagree with my position say that the word extend, even though it isn't in the definition, is what happens in the box of four. And therefore, even though the definition, the word extend is not written, it's implied. And therefore, they would say that it's okay to make the wave in the center. So because of all this, I never call it from lines facing out. I just never call it. I have no idea what, some are going to make a wave in the middle, some aren't, and so I just never call it from lines facing out. And the thrust of the article, which was in the advanced challenge article for American Square Dance, was that a lot of challenge callers just never call it from lines facing out, either because they do not agree with the CALLERLAB definition that it gives you a quarter tag, or because they found that there's so much confusion that they just never call it.
Question: from an inverted line, would you consider it going? Would you figure it goes to an ocean wave at the end?
No, the people, in my opinion, the majority of callers feel it's a box of four call only, and if it's a box of four call, you stay in your own box and you don't all of a sudden, in one specific case, get involved with the other box of four.
Well, I wasn't speaking of that from an inverted line.
Right.
Because I call it from an inverted line, and I wind up in an ocean wave with the same four people that you have.
Yeah.
But now by that way, then I should have wound up in a trade by. I'm just confused.
Yeah. Right. Again, how far do the centers step forward after they do their trade? To make an ocean wave in the middle, they have to step forward further than they do at any other time on a crossfire.
Oh, okay. All right, Tony. Repeat.
The question was from a tidal two-face line, what happens there? That's no problem. That's just yeah, but that's an extend, because that's an extend to a tag position.
Now, from all of this conversation, you understand there are definitely disagreements as to where a call starts, where it ends, from people who are really concerned with definitions. I wish you could have seen years ago when Jack Lazary was here. Ed and Jack got into an argument in one of these sessions. It was beautiful. And when it was over with, Jack's outside in the hallway sitting. Ed came out. Jack takes his checkers out of his pocket, threw them on the floor. Ed, you're wrong. Ed sat down right on the floor, took his checkers out of his pocket. He says, Jack, this is the way it is. So understand, there are friendly disagreements like this, and be aware of that. And don't be so locked into something that you can't see somebody else's position from that.
Good point. Good point. Yes, sir. We'll make this one the last one since it's lunchtime.
I'm Andy Shore from Mountain View, California. I have just one small fault with a word that came up several times in the presentations, and that's the word clever. People were saying your stuff doesn't have to be hard, it has to be clever. I'm not sure I want either my club dancers or my classes or guest clubs that I call for thinking, gosh, he's real clever, especially not on a night-by-night kind of basis. I'd rather them thinking, gosh, he gave me a new perspective on some formations or some calls that we thought we already knew pretty well. He does his homework, or he has interesting material. Clever, I think, has a bit of a connotation that I don't necessarily want to strive for in the impression that I make on dancers, and I don't know if anybody has any comments on that.
Okay, well, that's one of my expressions is don't get hard, get clever. I think what I'm really trying to say, Andy, is more than the idea is, as I see so many guys when they write material, you say, look, you need to go home and write homework. They write the hardest thing they can dream up, and they take it back to their group, and everybody breaks down and tell me what's fun about that. So the idea is rather than saying, well, you know yourself, and as you're a good dancer, you know yourself, that the idea that you can theme tips around one call and each time taking it progressively a little more difficult with each sequence. This is a great thing to do, but with a lot of floors, especially with people that you don't know, it's best to stay within standard positions of things that they can do, but use the whole list and just do it in a clever fashion rather than just swing through boys run wheel and deal. That's really the point, brother. I certainly appreciate what you're saying, because that's really what everybody wants to be looked at like that. They want to say, wow, this guy's really sharp, and every week he gives me a new perspective on things, and that keeps me coming in the door. And I'd like to say one other thing. My friend from Brooklyn here that got up and said, some other caller called you down on calling like 4 boys do a right and a left through. If the people that hired you to call the dance, when you called it, got a big laugh and who had a great time, who cares what the other caller thinks? That's a personal opinion.
A little Bronxervation. Yeah, it's a Bronxervation. Okay, this will be the last question, and we're going to lunch.
Lloyd Bowman, Nashville, Tennessee. It's not really a question. I'm getting a drift that you want the gimmicks to stay honest, and I don't feel that way. A gimmick is a gimmick, and I call, just for example, we all know you don't want to use the same hand twice. But I, on occasion, for a gimmick, call left touch a quarter, left cast off 3/4, left a la man. Is this that's a gimmick?
No, that in itself is a gimmick, and there's nothing wrong in that. Okay. However, if you did that every tip,
well, no.
See, that's the whole point with gimmicks. Gimmicks you use sporadically. You don't use gimmicks. And how many times have you heard of a caller and you hear, oh, the guy's pretty good, but he's full of gimmicks, and they're fun to dance to once, but not on a regular basis. That's you want to be the type caller that dancers want to dance to you on a weekly basis.
Right. The only reason I brought that up, we were picking on gimmicks, like everybody's Zoom and so forth.
Yeah. Well, gimmicks aren't supposed to be smooth, I don't think. I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for coming, and enjoy the rest of the convention.